Hello, species value nature system. Species fact treatment nature. Before each modern nation, the database relationship of each fact treatment nature in each modern nation, each voice, before that was realized, that database relationship had been tactically, criminally re-engineered. With and as the value of the sciences. With and as the value of the sciences with no criminal persuasions in relationship to our fact treatment nature, and with the value of the database relationship with and as the value of the campus Marcius as a correlation nature. Criminally re-engineered ancient internation sciences by a method that knew that it wouldn't be able to justify roles with that only let realized B sophistication and needs to explain the history, which they understood that one identity is coming through temporary space nature, as a forever nature has value, as a body of value at the same time, because it's a way of its unto itself, with the nature of positive and negative, as a forever nature, but as a semi-nature to the identity that is coming through it, that is expanding the value of temporary space nature, because its value is inherently, actively, and is progressively of gaining value. The identity of space, Allah, a trinity, as forever nature, as the semi-nature of the portion of it that stays juxtaposed, actively coming through temporary space nature as a quality of diffusion, or positive or negative. Positive as its evolution here, or as it pushed away from here, lithafadis, for space nature transfer in relationship to the identity of space. This is what ratiocination reveals. Radical discernment between it also as the value of both pseudo-ratiocination and of ratiocination, of predicate value with English onto its positive self with English, with nature as value, with predicate act value with the law as positive's negative relationship to itself, inherently, actively, and progressively. I am not a lawyer, but this is about organized crime. This is about a breaching organized crime. So we're gonna treat it as a criminal enterprise, and how we're gonna examine what made the motivations of what was entrenched in America before the birth of our founders, internation with a database relationship that was multi-front to the maintenance of only let realize pseudo-sophistication nature predators as the branches, in collusion with only let realized job types like armies breached, in conjunction with why and how George Washington had to leave, even with the French general's help. They both had to leave what was it to their fact treatment nature, slavery, enforced roles per the method as was examined. Why they had to leave slavery in Wethersfield, Connecticut, Hartford, Connecticut, Trinity College, where it used to be reportedly called George Washington College, but that's recorded tied to, George Washington was here with the French right before the last battle of the Revolutionary War. They could only semi-counter, extort this with their fact treatment nature slavery, because it was internation facilitated, and it was laws that were slavery against everyone. Not way worse than witch trials laws. Beyond slavery, because it's torture too. It's a fact treatment nature slavery and torture method. A shock and awe is cultivation method. A thee who smelt the delta cultivation method. So before the birth of our founders, we have internation maintained method to keep each modern nation as fact treatment nature defenses of physical delusions, and of worse than that by measure. Like when they say on CNN today with Wolf Blitzer, guy was saying the FBI is a storied institution. We have uncharged, our recorded criminally foreign influence American history summary convictions, opinion natures, treatments of that tied to the election crimes, with the NAS roles with the FBI, recorded beyond recorded with systemic physical delusions and mental illness, corruption within other agencies of other nations the same way with mental health, using a stack of diagnoses where they could forge names and just pretend they had conversations, pretend they had relationships to people in the past, stacking databases with illusions, with areas, with campuses, in conjunction with courts and with prisons doing it, with fact treatment nature crimes, preventing mandated law, preventing rules followed, and then just writing other in databases, even in courts, through time, sequence shifting, online in areas maintained, motivated, even Sandy Hook investigations and investigators recorded with crime rolls, with doctors, with crimes, homeland and foreign. When they mention about like how in Cuba they had people with some kind of sonic device hurting people or whatever, real or made up. When they talk about how like it endangers our agents and our news people and stuff like that, they're endangering themselves. But the method having them pretend other in relationship to that nature of terrorism that they're negotiated with. When they with opinions, criminally foreign influence, they're saying, or anyone has opinions, because that's why science, the news, is not supposed to fake both sides of stories. With courts doing the same thing, stacking illusions through lifetimes, pretending people have free speech. That's what they did. That's how it was motivated from a base to pretend it on others. Original, maintained, internation facilitated, all sophistication. That's what had slavery. With way worse than witch trials against everyone. Fact, treatment, nature, slavery of our founders. Take our course. They'll drop the force one way returns. So, this is what the movie's about. This is what the cartoons are about. And I'm going to show you how prejudice and how sense treatment, sense justification are just naive convictions, tactically exploiting what the nature of exceptions were for in relationship to a demonstration of exception, which is the identity of space relationship to itself, which is a manifest radical value. Within that is the value before, between, as, and beyond. Pseudo-ratiocination and ratiocination. But we can see what the difference between pseudo-ratiocination and ratiocination is, because it causes positive value nature progressions. When we have the identity of positive value nature as a value discerned, then we can see the identity of space. Then we can discern the identity of space through ratiocination, which means simultaneously inherent, active, and progressive. To correlation, the value of English, the correlation nature, the value of it, because it also has a positive or negative, only realized progression, individually, grouped, and top-down. Overall, top-down and overall simultaneously, so we can see the difference between what is not the complete identity of space, and then what is even all the sequence natures of our body, of all space. They have the overall one. the overall clock, all the values to it, all the gears, shared sequence nature. But that even that shared sequence nature is being forced by the identity that is a forced progression, a progressive value, simultaneously inherently before temporary space nature, which Earth is the phenomena of being closest to the nature of it because of the position of the sun, and where it can be in demonstration all ways at all moments to the value of this temporary, lasting, forever nature, expanding through our identities as positive value nature progression here, kept here as evolution, yin and yang, or is that whole thing pushed away from here to be negative value nature progression to positive value nature progression somewhere else? Because the three natures of the complete identity of space, Allah, this is revealed by science of ratiocination. This is before modern nations. Religions are about criminal re-engineered sciences, human fact treatment nature in relationship to that, forced markets positions in relationship to that, and then so forced justifications of it. And then so forced justifications within as a nature that has what is fluent through us, incapable of being discerned. So this has all nations in collusion with what suit and tie nations don't understand fluent through us, and what the counters don't understand because we're trying to counter the same thing, but we're not treating it from its tactically denatured relationship to nature forced. There are even proofs that they took down the pyramids to make these divisions. They forced crazy sick things like that, and color with the law and stuff like that for crazy or worse than witch trials because everyone was fact treatment to keep perpetual fact treatment nature roles, justifications, incapable of defending themselves and defending us at the same time, incapable of demonstrating the database crimes and fact treatment natures already systemic through time, with this uncharged, with nations internation facilitated here since before our founders. This is why George Washington had to leave slavery entrenched in the North. No way. See, we have movements criminally foreign influenced with opinion natures, not let demonstrated by pure science, because also areas maintained criminal persuasions over every campus, not realized because everyone was engineered to roles reliant upon investigators shared as a pseudo-identity, with that exploited. So they say, oh, it's important to defend the integrity of the FBI, but then they have to hide recorded proofs that the FBI has criminal roles facilitated with nations that we don't even get along with, that also had roles through the phenomena of their roles with areas crimes tied to lie progression cover-up natures and acts because of how FBI and other agencies and their family members were recorded fluently motivated to database crime roles, evidence crime roles against strangers, needing to cover their roles with lie progressions tied to interbranch, intermilitary, medical corruption and drug roles with formal drugs and with other people things drugs with the houses near campuses. And then they get huge drug cliques and they juxtapose them with people that pretend they had conversations with family members and stuff like that associated with all kinds of, like different positions in relationship to networks of police being exploited with the database crimes to cover lie progressions from tricks with courts, stacking, illusion, evidence sequence shift. Ninth Circuit, there was an in-court, hand-delivered on time, time-stamped on time, proven. And then in the context of the Trade Center attack, which the Ninth Circuit is right next to it, in that context, in court proven was they were post-dated. Then they were, and then that day before a panel of judges, with a local 230, also further recorded and confessed, involved with FBI and other agencies and their family members, interbranch ones, with child crimes with campuses of the youngest ages. See, this is also within as a recorded crime against each age of fact treatment nature. Each person individually, grouped, sequentially, together, and progressively. So we never had one modern nation capable of countering or even explaining and understanding how we were forced to top-down nature, which is distinct from overall down nature. See it now, a tree and like a non-denatured landscape, all cultivated properly, like water system, fish, you know what I mean? Everything working together, that's overall. That's what evolves. That's an identity coming through that is also gaining positive value onto itself here. Because if it's not allowed to do that, because it's only going to stay positive progression, the inherent identity of space in conjunction with its overall identity, in conjunction with what yin yang is painting, which of these two forever natures, active volume and the progressive volume, contained by the identity of space that we're only like cells of, you know what I'm saying, and not as physical body, but as a quality of diffusion coming through this physical body, positive or negative. There's only neutrality to our progression as value as a nature, per nature of education criminally re-engineered to maintain everyone formal, only let realized as roles, blaming the real causes of negative value nature progressions and acts on others, raised as criminal insidiousness nature, then needing to defend justifications of that within as predatory trick fact treatment natures, and within as the nature of humanity, blaming the causes of that on others. Always this is true, because always the identity of positive, discerned as an identity of value, is only always simultaneously inherently active and progressively a value unto itself and as itself. So Earth's value, just because we're only one species, that's the only reason it was too long. It pushed away. When they say survival of the fittest, that's like, in other words, this is my theory. This is more than a theory. It's a counterposition to nature of physical delusions, systemic with the agencies of modern nations, because they don't explain what was it, and because they're in relationship to a nature of terrorism, where they're controlling, in other words, impressions of agencies and other family members with quantitative physical delusions, and with in other words, look at the streets. They're in a trap. They can't see the way to rap. In other words, the agencies were breaching roles with into the fact treatment nature slavery of our founders, who had to be roles against themselves. They had to hide what they were doing. They had to hide with the roles and the extent of what they were doing even after the Constitutional Convention, even in Marbury versus Madison, which is all we need. Anyways, we didn't need one, because he's our founding father, because it's his plan that could only trick what was already entrenched forced roles with the crazy database relationships anyways, crazy physical delusions, and incapable of allowing even defense of the Constitution, of integrity, equality of fact treatment nature. We are positive or negative. Now, negative since some ancient times. This just reminds. Nature keeps demonstrating. So, Merry Christmas. If we admit this, that's the Santa Claus. You know what I'm saying? That brings in, that's the nature that is progressively, inherently, simultaneously, inherently, actively, and progressively positive value onto itself. This is the value of the metaphysical snowman, snow people. one of the values of sex is, and of children, is to see this Trinity and demonstration of its own relationship to its own value, which is the overall identity of space. Like our body has an identity that all cells, all trinities of it's just cells, a nucleus, a body, and a cell wall. The cell wall is like a vacuum where the identity of the nucleus in the body of the cell, the other cells, also every body of value has a little piece that comes beyond it, because it's the identity of nature, that bonded matter, that is every part before the finite, but it has finite value. And there's only one that can be that, and at the same time active and progressive value. And that will only stay perfection unto itself, or it will demonstrate with negative value nature progressions. See, the campus marxiste was a quality of fact, treatment nature, quality of value, with and as nature, with it as a correlation nature, capable of change, but through it in relationship to a value nature system, the value nature system, not these that were only let realized, forced, only let, in other words, worse than slavery, forced, fact treatment nature wise. And this is the course that is lost by the by what is the gaining value of our species, which is now the depleted value of our species, pseudo-evolution, the nuclear weapons, treatments of means. In other words, we never had legal representation for Hartford, Connecticut, in relationship to this, relationship to how they set the houses up, in relationship to laws that had it forced. If anyone was even found out talking about building infrastructure outside of conversations that were internation monitored too, without everyone understanding that, and then with that other ways too, so they will stay fact treatment nature, incapable as ours, as only let realized sophistication, way beyond only let realized tactically degraded and worse than just tortured, pseudo-educated areas, campuses, and opinion natures, recorded criminally foreign influence and fraud, incapable, needing fact treatment nature forwards, with branches needing to defend criminal insidiousness nature. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a police form, I'm not a criminal. I'm an expert on the nature of English grammar, and that's what I'm talking about, the difference between positive and negative in relationship to itself. Our value in relationship to with the fact treatment rackets right there too, when they attack pseudo-Islam, but where they wrap their arms around pseudo-Islam and they attack pseudo-Islam pretending it is at the same time. You see, this is against correlation, because correlation is multi-front. We have monolithic convictions and physical delusions with the media and with the branches and with the agencies distinctly together, recorded and confessed, demonstrated with internation and internation, medical corruption and roles. In other words, we're breached with police crime roles, areas facilitated, online facilitated, intercampus facilitated, using excuses like pretending it's about training undercover and stuff like that. This was his crime method directed through only let realized areas and states, executive and legal nature, predatory litigation nature, only let realized. To understand this is all recorded. So we have to, and we'll also examine what everyone missed with that, with everyone blaming things on others, when it demonstrably with convictions that aren't true always, and demonstrably with tied and exploited roles with mass hurt on Hartford, especially distinctly, simultaneously on Wethersfield. But see, everyone's stuck in physical delusions, So we can't put the crime method pointed sickly most on the north end of Hartford, and on focused on Park Street, and with police interbranch foreign police rackets with campuses worse than intercity and interstate connected, and worse than internation connected. So it has nations shared as suit and tie collusion, as